Well, our phonograph is now virtually finished. We described the arm in the last part, so we don't need to describe that anymore. But we didn't mention the actual main structure, such as it is. It consists merely of a piece of silver steel, 6mm diameter, mounted in two bearing blocks, commercial 6mm bearing blocks supported on pieces of aluminium alloy, which just happen to be round. And the cylinder is supported by two conical pieces of aluminium turned down. That's it. And the cylinder, of course, the thing is, it rotates. Normally the top of the cylinder rotates away from you, but on this it's much more convenient if you've got a long arm to have the top of the cylinder rotating towards you, and this means you have to put the cylinder on the wrong way round, which is why this cone is bigger than that one. And if you put on this blue amberol and then put that in there, there's a little spring that goes on here and a nut, so that you're not really putting much stress on the cylinder at all, because you don't want to do that in case it busts. So that's the top all dealt with. But what we've been working on all day today is the motor, and we've finally got rid of the noise. The belt comes down here, and we've fitted an intermediate shaft, also a piece of 6mm silver steel. It's running in plain brass bearings, so they're going to wear out pretty quick, but we just wanted to prove the point. And it means that we can use another motor. Here's the motor mounted on a piece of wood. It's a small, quite a small, synchronous motor out of an old fan heater that was bust, but I kept the motor in case it came in handy. And it runs at 2,800 RPM off the main, so we have got to gear it down a bit with these various pulleys. But the main thing is that a synchronous motor is pretty quiet, and if we switch it on, you can hardly hear it, which is a very pleasant change from the one we were using until yesterday. Yes, we had a good rethink about the variable speed motor. Did we really need variable speed? You see, we had it originally, and we didn't have it for correcting the pitch of the cylinder, because that can be done, the key that the cylinder is in, if it's music, that can be done easily in a few seconds in the computer. The reason we wanted variable speed was if we had an out of shape cylinder that was sort of wobbly or oval, we could slow the speed right down, and so that the stylus could track the wobbly cylinder. Well, after having transferred one or two wobbly oval cylinders, they sound so dreadful that, you know, I've lost interest in playing them. You can't sort it out on a computer. You need a very sophisticated machine indeed to do that. More about that in the notes to this video. Therefore, we just want a speed, and by juggling around with the pulleys and the belts and the intermediate shaft, we've now got it to very near to 160 RPM. We've got a double stroboscope here. The inner one is 162 RPM and the outer 161. So if we switch it on, you'll see that it's slightly eccentric, I'm afraid. I'm not very good at cutting out paper circles, but it's pretty well around 161, 162, and anything that varies from that, well, we can correct that in the computer. We're going to play this blue amberol. We're just checking it for regularity. If I switch it on, it's going round, and you can see there is a very slight unevenness in that end of the cylinder. Well, we might be able to get away with that, but if we look at the other end, that is a highly significant bit of eccentricity. We've got to cure that. Fortunately, it's even, it's symmetrical. Well, what we need to do is take a good look and rotate the cylinder manually, see where the high spot is, and then at 180 degrees away there's a low spot, and when we've located that, we can pull the cylinder open against this spring and just put in a little bit of packing, which I worked out before. That's just a little strip of paper folded up. Well, our bit of paper has worked, and so the cylinder's now running almost perfectly. Well, the cylinder is actually Castle House Rag by the National Promenade Band, and it's the only direct recorded Blue Amberol I've got. I've got 30 odd others, but they all happen to be dubs from diamond discs, because in about 1916 Edison, the company, decided to dub the Blue Amberols from the diamond discs. I mean, you know that already. But it's nice to have a direct recorded one. I'll have to look for some more. And so, well, let's play it and off we go. Well, we've got our file now on the computer, and I'm going to talk you very quickly through the processing we do on it and see how it turns out. Here's our wave file. This is Diamond Cut DC7, a very widespread useful program which I've used for years. And here are our two channels, and we can listen to it. That's through the monitor speakers, by the way. But of course, this isn't the right sound. We need to combine the products of these two channels in order to get them to be mono, integrated mono. And now there they are, down at the bottom, and now we'll put that back up to the top. It's called Castle House Rag, and this one is now Castle House Rag 1. So what does it sound like now? Well, that's more like it. We've got a kind of chunky sound now, but there's rather a lot of waffle, low frequency waffle down this end of it. So what I would tend to do now is to put in a high pass filter and take out everything below, shall we say, about 80 Hertz, and to run it. There we are. Now you see it's cleaned up. That waffle has gone, so that's a step in the right direction. So we'll put them at the top, so that's now Castle House 2. Here's some nasty clicks. There, I think there's even a couple there. They may not respond to the software, so we might have to take these out manually. But before we do any processing, I always like to put a bit of equalisation on the signal. And there's not much true bass on an Edison diamond disc or an Amberol. What we can do is lift the treble a bit, and I've got a setting here in the parametric equalizer, which I'm working on for 4-minute cylinders. And we've got a nice peak there at 3.5 kilohertz. I don't know whether you can see the cursor, I hope so. 3.5 kilohertz. It's a very useful place to have a lift, especially if there's voices, but in any case. And then here at about 300, I'd normally have this lower for a 70 for a disc, but I'll put it up about 300. If we preview it, I think it's brought the sound forward a lot. If we play it again and then bypass it, you'll hear the difference. Bypass. And the sound recedes, and I think it's better with this lift, so we'll apply that EQ to the whole file. There we are, we've got our equalised file, so we'll get that back and save it. It's now Castle House Rag 3. Well, here's our equalised track. Now for the clever bit, we'll get rid of some of these crackles. There's a lot here, you can hear them. They're very nasty. We might not, the software probably won't take them out. We'll probably almost certainly have to remove those by hand. But for the general background crackle, there's a setting here I've got called decrackle, and it strips all the noise out of the file and leaves the original file unchanged, but we end up with a lot of noise and crackle stripped out of the file, so we'll save that. And that's now Castle House 4. And what we'll do now is to decrackle all this noise, and I've got a setting for that. Off we go, decrackling it, but it does take a little while. There we are, and we've now got rid of all the crackles, and now we've got largely hiss. We save that, and that's Castle House Rag 5. Now we need to do something we can't do in Diamond Cut. Good old faithful Diamond Cut can do lots of things, but it can't do something that SoundForge can, which is, I'll show you what. Now we open these 3 files, the highest ones we've got, which is Castle House 5, 4 and 3, and we open all those 3 files. And this is the hiss file. Now I'm going to select all of it and copy it, and I'm now going to do something where the noise file is and paste it back in, paste, mix, paste, mix, and invert the data, and all the noise goes back in and leaves mostly crackles. As you can hear, there's a lot of crackles there now. There's a little bit of music as well, but it's mostly crackles. So what we do now is copy all these crackles, and guess what, we paste them back into the original file. Edit, paste special, mix with the data inverted, and bingo, off you go. Now what does it sound like now? Well, it's getting better, so we'll just save this. We'll save it back in our original folder, and it should, we got up to Castle House 5, so this one has got to be Castle House 6. Don't worry about that, that's relative to Sonic SoundForge, it's not relative to Diamond Cut. So we can open it now. File open, Castle House 6. And that's our finished file, but you can see that here there's several large clicks that have eluded processing because they were too big. There's a little group of them there, and well, the rest is simple. You take them out manually one at a time. I mean, they're not too bad. I'm not really sitting in front of the computer screen, but if you interpolate something like that, that's more or less got rid of it, that one. So zoom out, go along to the next crack. But of course you know about all this, and you can interpolate, I would think, from there to there, hit the eye, and that's restored. You'd hardly know there was anything ever been there, and so on and so on. Well, after you've tidied up the odd remaining clicks, that's about it. But there's one thing that if you are a bit obsessive like I am, you want to see if it's in the right key. I have actually checked it before, and it's in B flat, the key of B flat. It actually comes in on B flat minor, which is a little unusual, but we'll just play. I'll set off the file, and there's a keyboard over here. And I think that's as near to B flat minor as it needs to be. So I think we deserve a drink after all that. Cheers. And I'm afraid yet again the video's turned out a lot longer than I intended, and there's still 4 minutes of Castle House Rag by the National Promenade Band to go, but you don't have to listen to all of it. But I hope you enjoyed all this messing around.